Hello once again. Hey, today we're going to be covering, woo, in our music basics, how to build a major scale. Well, a major scale is kind of like magic. I have so many students ask me, how is it that these key signatures work? In fact, I remember many tears being shed over kids trying to understand key signatures. Well, key signatures and major scales, it can be kind of overwhelming. But today I want to try to break it down for you and make it really understandable for the basic musician, the beginning musician, maybe even some of you advanced players out there really never understood how these things come together. And so I want to show you today how we build a major scale. First thing I want to do is to go into musictheory.net. And this is a great place to start. I use this as a great tool. I would really encourage you to go and download their app. If you're a young musician or a beginning musician and you're trying to understand how does music fit together, this is a great website to use. So what I've done is you can go into the home page of Music Theory, go into their lessons page, and under lessons, you'll find all kinds of great things. We've covered the staff and the clefs and the basic elements of music. Down here, though, down the list, you're going to find the major scale. As you tackle the major scale, we need to understand that it is simply a series of steps. And every time we build a major scale, it's going to always follow the same sequence of steps. Now, in one of my earlier videos, I talked about major and minor seconds. And so this is the next lesson in the sequence of understanding how they build then into a scale, major seconds and minor seconds. So it's simply a series of steps. If you can remember this little chant, whole, whole, half, whole, 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 half, whole, whole, half, whole, 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 half, you'll be able to build a major scale starting on any note. And so we're going to find that we only have 12 major scales. Only. Basically 12 major scales? What? Well, let's just start off with a C major scale. Once we understand the foundational building blocks, we can build a major scale off of any launching point. In this case, a C major scale starts with, you got it, a C, right? It's really basic. I don't want to overcomplicate music. We want to make it so it's really understandable. So a C major scale is going to start and end on a C. And then we have a series of whole steps and half steps that fall in between it. Whole, whole, half, whole, 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 half. There's our sequence. So we start on a C. The next note above a C, by the way, that's piano keyboard. I love it because it shows a great visual imagery of what the notes are as far as whole steps and half steps. So if we can remember that to the left of a double key is a C, left of the triples, F, doubles, C. So we start on a C. The next note up, we need to move up a whole step. Well, a C to the black key is only a half step. Up one more, another half step. Two half steps equal a whole step. C, following the sequence of the alphabet, C to a D. Well, that's going to be a whole step. So the next note up in our sequence is going to be a D. We see that pictured here, C to a D, whole step. Well, we need another whole step. D, up one black key is only a half step, up to the white key, whole step. D to an E would be our next whole step. Well, in our sequence now we need a whole, whole. Now we need to go up a half step. An E, up one half step. There's no black key in between them. So this is our half step, an E to an F. Well, the next note in the sequence is going to be an F, E to an F. Well, now we have to jump up a whole step, F, whole step. Can't be the black key, that's only a half step, up to the next white key. Whole step, F to a G. We have a whole step. G, whole step. We need another whole step here. So the next whole step is going to be a G to an A. I know this is moving kind of quick, but I think that you'll get it. Hang in there. A up another whole step is a B, because this is a B flat. That's only a half step. Have to move all the way up to the white key. That's a B. Next, to finish our scale, we move up our last half step. No black key, B to a C is a half step. Hence, we ended up with a C, low C, or in many cases, we call that a middle C, the ledger line below a treble staff. We have all the way up to the C. Whole, whole, half, whole, 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 half. What does that sound like? Well, that's our C major scale, and it would sound like this. Very familiar to our ear. We've learned that C major scale way, way back in our early days. All the way back to the elementary school. So that would be a C major scale. Well, what would it look like if we were to build a different scale? Well, every scale is going to follow that same series. Well, what if we started on an E flat? Well, an E flat major scale. Well, we can jump right back over here to musictheory.net, and by its name, we're going to start on an E flat. Hence, on the staff, an E with a flat sign. Flats simply lower a pitch by 1/2 step. If we jump over to our visual using the piano keyboard, here's that E again, right? To the left of the doubles is a C, D, E, C, D, E. An E flat simply lowers a pitch by a 1/2 step. If you're a guitar player, it would move down 1 fret on the guitar. From an E, you would move down the neck one fret, and that gives you an E flat. Of course, down the neck means away from the body toward the headstock. If you're playing a guitar, up the neck would mean up toward the body of the guitar, raising the pitch, or lowering the pitch, moving toward the headstock away from the body. So in this case, E to an E flat. There's our starting pitch on a piano, E flat. Now, if we follow the same sequence of steps, whole, whole, half, whole, 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 half, we end up going from the E flat past the E natural to the F, because 2 half steps equal a whole step. E flat up to an F is going to be the first whole step that we make in our E flat major scale. So now we want to move up, following our sequence, another whole step. Takes us up to a G. Now we have to go up. If we look over here in our sequence, whole, whole, half, we can only move up now a 1/2 step. So we can't go up from a G to an A natural, because that's a whole step. It would sound very odd to us. It wouldn't sound like a major scale. So we have to lower this pitch to an A flat. That's where these flat signs and sharp signs come in to play when we're looking at major scales. So the next in our sequence then has to be another whole step, A flat. Can't be this key, has to be here, because it has to be a whole step, and that is our B flat. That's why we have an E flat major scale. We have to have E flats, A flats, and B flats. Now, some music teachers say you just name those out of order. We'll talk about the order of the flats as we move on. I just name them in the sequence that they fall in the scale. So B flat up a whole step is going to be a C. We have to skip this white key, which is the B key. From a B flat, next note is a C, because it's a whole step. We want another whole step, which is going to take us up to the D. And then we finish our scale with a 1/2 step. Whole, whole, half, whole, 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 half. So finishing it off on the E flat. Well, that shows us then what an E flat major scale set is, and it sounds like this. If we were singing that, that's our do, re, mi scale, right? And there we have our major scale based on the E flat. Well, that is going to always be the case with every major scale. So we can start on a D now. And this will be the last scale that we build here using musictheory.net. Now a D major scale. Well, if we start on a D, same sequence, whole, whole, half, whole, 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 half. D, E, whole step up, D to an E. Need another whole step next. That's not going to be the F natural, but now we have to add the sharp sign. A raised F, we raise an F by a half step, we get an F sharp. So that's where the F sharp comes into play in a D major scale. Why do we need an F sharp? Well, it wouldn't be a D major scale if we had the F lowered, because that would only be a whole step to a half step. Sounds very different to the ear. In this case, we want a D sharp. Raises up to a half step, G, F sharp to a, I might have just misspoken. We need an F sharp in D major. So just to be clear, F sharp to a G, half step, G up to an A, whole step. We need another whole step, takes us up to a B. Now we need another whole step, which leaps past the C natural to the C sharp. And that's where the C sharp comes into play in a D major scale, because we need that whole step. And then our final step becomes another half step to a D. So a D major scale sounds like, and hence we have two sharps in the key of D major. So that's how this is built. That's how that scale, how our major scales are put together. Whole, whole, half, whole, 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 half. Always works the same. Now I'll show you one last screen here so that we can see how this key signature falls into play and what it actually looks like in our music. Of course, I keep using treble clef as the instructional basis for most of my videos, but the same thing can be applied in bass clef. For instance, if I wanted to come over to, this is using Sibelius, it's a music writing system. If I wanted to write the same C major scale in bass clef, I would start here with, how about we actually start by placing a C in the bass clef. We could then, we know that the next note up has to be well, it helps if I actually write a C and not an A. So here we have a C up to a D to an E, whole step, whole step, whole, now half as the F, whole step G, whole step A, whole step B, half step C. All natural notes. And so if I were to play that, then it would sound like this. Right? Now, what if I wanted to take all of that and transpose all of it, and I needed to put that into, let's say D. Let's say we wanted to transpose into the key of D. I'm not sure that you're seeing my menu pop up as I'm working inside this window. I'm hoping that you can see all of the menus pop up. So this is C major that I just showed you, starts and ends on a C. Well, D major was the one that we just looked at. And so if I were to place the C major scale and play it in the key of D, well, that would sound kind of funky, right? So I can take that C natural. So my series of whole steps and half steps are now going to be off if I have all of these notes playing in C sharp to a C sharp. Wow, does that ever sound different? So that it might sound like it does not sound like a major scale, right? So instead we want to take all of these notes, and now they have to start and end on a D if I want it to sound like a major scale. And now I can actually play a D major scale. Now the whole steps and half steps are in the right sequence. And that's how we then begin to use our key signatures. The key signatures, the sharps and flats, will always come in the same sequence. In this case, F sharp is always the first sharp that we use in a key signature, then a C sharp, and they will always come in the same sequence, because as we add sharps, it simply keeps shifting the beginning note around on the staff. So let me come back to my key signatures. And again, I'm hoping that you can see this drop-down menu, because we get to see that the order of sharps will always be the same. F sharp is first, F sharp, C sharp, F sharp, C sharp, and G sharp. Key of E major is going to look like this: F sharp, C sharp, G sharp, D sharp. And they always will follow the same sequence of sharps in the key signature. And why is that? Well, that is, again, it is because we start on a given pitch. And once we begin on that pitch, then following that pitch, every note has to be adjusted into that whole, half, whole, half sequence. So that is the building of a major scale for you. Now you can practice that on your instrument, any given instrument. You have to know what those notes are in order to build that major scale. I hope that this helps you understand how a major scale is built. Main thing to remember: whole, half, whole, half. You can build a major scale starting on any note. Well, I hope that you found this helpful on where does a major scale come from. You can go and practice that now, but the main thing is just to make some music and have some fun out there. Would you have some fun making music? Share your music with somebody, and again, enjoy the experience.